Hello, everyone. Sorry this is late. I didn't realize I hadn't put up an overview video yet for Plato's Euthyphro. So I'm doing it now. No harm done. Again, I want to remind you that if you ever want to contact me about the class for any reason, please do so. And also that I will be putting up a video tonight or tomorrow focusing on the first essay, which is due on September 27th. So that'll be coming out in an announcement. So we're reading Plato's Euthyphro this week, and it is a dialogue. Euthyphro, of course, called the Euthyphro because one of the characters in the dialogue is named Euthyphro. If you've never read a dialogue, one of Plato's dialogues before, it is like a little play. It's a conversation between two people. You may or may not know much about Socrates. Socrates was a real person. He lived in the 5th century, mostly BC, so the 400s before the birth of Christ, or before the Christian era, BCE or BC, however we want to put it. Plato was a real person. Obviously, he wrote this. He knew Socrates. Socrates never wrote anything, but he talked with people. He was famous for having public conversations with people on philosophical topics, and Plato knew him as a young man and was very much affected by him. And Plato began, after the death of Socrates in 399 BC, to write these dialogues, these philosophical dialogues, in which Socrates appears as the main character and leads a conversation into some philosophical topic or other. And this is one of Plato's early dialogues, called the Euthyphro, again, because Socrates is talking to Euthyphro. There are a number of little references here that might, if we had footnotes, who is the king archon, and I think all you really need to know is that Socrates runs into Euthyphro, that they know each other. They're not close friends or anything, but they know each other. And they meet basically on the courthouse steps. They run into each other. And as you see in this introductory part of it, Euthyphro is there to prosecute a case, whereas Socrates is there to answer to an indictment in a case. So in the Athenian system of justice, if someone was going to be prosecuted for a crime, then an individual citizen actually had to bring the charge and prosecute them in court in order for them to be tried. And Euthyphro is doing that. He is bringing an indictment against somebody, while Socrates is answering an indictment from somebody. The reason for Euthyphro's indictment is what sets the conversation off, because as we find out, Euthyphro is there to indict his own father for murder. And Socrates is, I think, really stunned by this. He's really very, very surprised that anyone would indict their own father for a crime like this and have to prosecute them. So the dialogue is really about, or it really starts at least, with Socrates sort of asking, well, why would you do such a thing? And asking him about the circumstances. But as we know, it becomes a more focused thing. That is, so where is it exactly that Socrates brings up the key issue? Maybe it's not Socrates who brings it up. Maybe it's Euthyphro himself, that Euthyphro realizes that by doing this, by bringing his own father to court like this for a capital crime, a crime that he would be executed for if he were found guilty, he says he knows that people will think that it's impious, that a son is impious who prosecutes a father. And that becomes a key word, right? That is, this dialogue, it has this dramatic setting. It has this strange story that has brought Euthyphro to court. But essentially, it is a philosophical investigation into the nature of piety. That is, when Euthyphro tells Socrates that these people who say that he's impious for prosecuting his own father are wrong. That is, when Euthyphro says, well, these people accuse me of impiety, but they don't know what they're talking about. It's not impious. And Socrates says, well, okay, then, all right, then you must know what piety is. That is, if you're so sure that what you're doing is pious and not impious, then you must know what piety is. So tell me, and then we're off away from the personal thing, away from the details of Euthyphro's story about his father and how his father came to kill this man. We're away from the personal details of that into what is essentially an abstract philosophical examination of the nature of piety. And piety is, I would say, look that word up in a good dictionary to get a notion of what sort of thing, at least, they're looking into. Because piety is not a word that you hear very much. It is essentially a religious word. And when Euthyphro tries to define it after some missteps, right, he defines piety as what the gods love. That is, being pious means doing what the gods love. And that gives us a sense of what essentially piety means. Someone who's pious is somebody who's religiously observant, we would say, someone who thinks about their religion, the god or the gods, depending on what the religion is. I mean, piety is not something that is restricted to any particular religion. Someone who's religiously minded and careful in their behavior, trying to, live the way that God or the gods wants them to, we normally think of as pious. And so it's quite natural when Euthyphro defines piety as doing what the gods love. Where does he say that? Yeah, it's here on page 6. Euthyphro says, piety then is that which is dear to the gods, or that which the gods love, and impiety is that which is not dear to them, or that which they do not love. So being pious is doing what the gods love. That's Euthyphro's, probably his best shot at a definition of piety. And we see that things get a little more complicated after that. And maybe I'll make another video because Socrates' objections to that definition of piety, which is not on the face of it a bad definition. It seems like it's actually pretty close to how the word is used, commonly. Socrates' objections to that get a little tricky, and maybe we should look a little bit more closely at the text. But I think that once you think it through, once you get past the kind of maze of convoluted words that constitute Socrates' objection to it, his objections actually do make perfect sense. But let me make another video about that so we can concentrate on it.